back to Movies That Move Me. I'm your host, Elijah Winfrey, and today we are talking about a film that I used to act out as a child. That's right. In fact, it was kind of a disturbing scene that I used to act out as a kid, but we'll get to that. The movie that we're talking about today is Top Gun. Yeah, and I can't believe it's taken me this long to talk about one of my all-time favorite films. Of course, it stars many, many wonderful actors and performers, including, of course, Tom Cruise, Val Kilmer. You've got Anthony Edwards in this thing as well. Just so many people involved in Top Gun. And obviously, they just did the sequel, Top Gun Maverick, which I think was fantastic. We'll talk about that movie at another point in time. Okay, maybe a little bit in this episode, but we'll do a whole episode on it at another point in time. Today, though, I wanted to focus on Top Gun because it is, in fact, a movie that moved me. It was one of the first films I ever really remember caring about as a kid and rewatching and rewatching. And did I mention rewatching? Yeah, rewatching, because it was just that good. Now, obviously, if you've never seen Top Gun before, I don't know where you've been. But it did come out, I believe, in 1985, if I'm not mistaken, 1985, 1986. I, of course, was born in 93, which means that by the time I had seen it, everyone else had already seen it like 100 times. But one of the things that I love about it is I love how it has that rewatchability. You know, as a kid, I remember watching it and really, really rooting for Maverick. You know, he's obviously the lead character, played by Tom Cruise. He's a little bit of a wild guy, doesn't always do things by the book. In fact, he does things that are not even in the book. And somehow, some way, most of the time, it works out for him. And now, as I rewatch it as an adult, I'm more on Val Kilmer's side, Iceman's side, because I'm looking at it going, okay, that was an unnecessary risk that Maverick just took there. He probably shouldn't have done that. And so I like how you can rewatch it, but you can also change perspectives in it as you continue to watch it, if that makes any sense. Obviously, man, they were doing stuff with this film that hadn't been done before in movies with their aerial fights and different things like that. And from everything I've heard, from watching documentaries and things about this film, they didn't know that it was going to be as big as it was when they first made it. They were like, okay, well, we'll test this thing out and see how it does. And it ended up turning into a gigantic film for everybody involved. And it also ended up, actually helping the Navy recruit quite a bit as well. Folks who obviously wanted to get in, to the Navy to serve their country, I'm sure, but also to have maybe an opportunity to be like Iceman or Maverick. Now, I had mentioned earlier that there was a scene that I used to recreate as a kid a lot, and it's kind of embarrassing to say, but for whatever reason, I always loved, as a kid, I loved the relationship between Maverick and Goose. And so every time I'd rewatch it as a kid, when Goose would unfortunately meet his demise, I would always like reenact that scene and be super sad every time that happened. Now that I watch it as an adult, I'm still sad that it happened, but I look at it and I go, wow, that is a really beautiful scene that they put together for that, because you do see some scenes where they just go for the grotesque part of it, but the death scene for Goose, and I guess that's technically a spoiler, to me, the way they did it was really beautiful, really tugs at the heartstrings. And, I've seen grown men cry because of that scene, and understandably so. But again, Top Gun, one of my all-time favorites. I rewatch it, I think 10 times a year, if I'm being honest, probably more than that, if I'm being truthful. But man, it is just one that there's never a bad time to watch Top Gun. That's just my personal feeling about it. My wife would feel differently, but yeah. I always love watching Top Gun. Top Gun Maverick, just real quick, what I'll say about it, and again, we'll do a whole episode on Top Gun Maverick, don't you worry. But I really was impressed by how they were able to capture the same feelings from the first film. It was almost like they opened up a time capsule. You know what I'm saying? Like they opened up a time capsule and you're experiencing everything for the first time all over again. It's not often that a sequel is able to pull that off. And also, can we just talk about the fact that like they created things specifically to get the shots they got in this film? Like that to me is so cool because you don't get to see that a whole lot in big budget movies anymore. A lot of times they opt for the CGI thing, and I'm not saying CGI is bad, but a lot of times they'll opt for that. And this one, they were actually like taking cameras, breaking pieces off of them, retooling them, redoing things so that they could get exactly what they needed inside of each plane to get the shots that would make you and I jump out of our seats and go, oh, hey, hold on to the popcorn, right? So for me, I just feel like that's really cool. Like to see them be inventive with cameras and with angles and different things like that. That to me was super inspiring. And that is part of the reason why I was super disappointed that Top Gun Maverick did not end up getting an Oscar or even an Oscar nomination for Best Cinematographer, because I feel like, you know, if you're doing things that the industry's never seen before with a camera, you should probably be nominated for that. But again, I'll let people fight that out in the comments. Just like I thought, and a lot of people called me foolish for this, but I thought Top Gun Maverick would have won Best Picture last year for the Oscars, because it was the movie that, by a lot of people's accounts, saved Hollywood, because it certainly saved a lot of small town movie theaters, because people actually got out to the theater again to go watch it. So again, I don't want to turn this into a Top Gun Maverick episode, but I obviously really, really enjoyed the sequel. We'll do a whole show on that in the future. Last thing that I did want to mention, though, about Top Gun, okay, to go back with what this episode's actually about, Top Gun. I actually have up here on my wall, I can't show it to you because it's on the other side of the camera, but I actually have here on my wall the soundtrack for Top Gun. And that was another big thing that I wanted to mention, because as you guys know, if you follow any of my work, each of my films has their own soundtrack. A big reason for that are films like Top Gun that made the soundtrack kind of an additional character in the film. They didn't just opt for a, you know, regular composer coming in and doing a beautiful soundtrack. They also had various artists come in and, you know, obviously give songs for the film. Obviously, you got Kenny Loggins with Danger Zone. You got Kenny Loggins with Playing with the Boys. You've got, I'm looking up at the soundtrack right now. You've got Cheap Trick with Mighty Wings. And of course, you cannot talk about the Top Gun soundtrack without mentioning Berlin's Take My Breath Away, which is one of my all-time favorite songs. And in my opinion, it only takes one time hearing that song, and then it doesn't matter where you are or how they're using that song. You'll hear those first couple of notes, and you'll know that it's that song. And that's kind of rare. You don't see a lot of songs like that nowadays, but I hear them use that as background music for commercials and things like that. And then, to be honest with you, it doesn't really work for whatever it is they're advertising, because I don't remember what they're advertising. I just remember it's Berlin, Take My Breath Away. So yeah, maybe they should rethink that. But I love the fact that song, and a lot of those songs are still, you know, very, very prevalent to this day. And that soundtrack makes it where I want to have a soundtrack like that. I want to have a soundtrack that kicks ass that much that people are still playing it. People are putting it up on their walls. So it gives me something to aspire to. But again, Top Gun, a movie that moved me. Thank you so much for fanning out with me tonight. I appreciate it. Remember, if you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. If you're watching this on TikTok, do the TikTok thing. But overall, thank you so much for spending a little time with me talking about one of my all-time favorite films. Till next time, see you soon.